You're listening to Navid Moosa of the Mindset Movement.
Good day, good people. My name is Navid Moosa. I'm your host today and always for the Mindset Movement. Each and every week, we try to bring you guys as much information as possible to make you the better entrepreneur, the better individual, just a better person overall. Not that you need it, but just in case you wanted it, we got you covered. So, new time listeners, thanks for giving us an opportunity. We know that there's a lot of information out there and you are choosing to stop here, so we appreciate that. Long-time listeners, thanks for your loyalty. We love you just as much. And if you like us, please drop that like and share us and let people know about the podcast. So without further ado, like each and every week, we no fluff pieces. We get into it because we respect your time and our time. I've been on this kick of trying to find people who I've come across or have not come across and trying to better myself. And I'll tell you right now, it's not hard to find some of these people because they're right here close to where I've already lived and I've come across in my social circle, if you will. And today's guest is no stranger to that circle. I've known her for multiple years. We met at a meetup, which I'm so glad that they're open again. We can go to some meetups here. Thank God. And so without further ado, please help me welcome Michelle Rogers of Brick and Mortar Investments. Thank you, Michelle, for taking the time. I know you're busy.
Thank you, Navid, for having me. And I'm extremely thankful and appreciative to be on your podcast and to be recognized as someone in your circle that, you would have me on.
Oh, definitely. Listen, it's you've earned it. You put the work in, and that's why I wanted you here. I wanted you to talk about the work. I wanted you to talk about, I mean, everything you do, and you're very regimented. Like the text I got from you saying these days are set for inspections and this is for this. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's. I think people need to hear that. I think people need to hear and understand that when you take on becoming working for yourself, it doesn't necessarily have to be this 100% balls to the wall every single time. But at first, you may need to do that, and that's fine. It's the sacrifice we all have to make at some point in time, whether it be personal, professional, or both. So I want you to give the listeners, could you please give the listeners just a background of where you came from and how you got there and where you are now, and give as much information as possible that you're comfortable giving.
Okay, well, thank you. I started like everybody else as a twinkle in our parents' eye. No, truly though, my upbringing, I mean, we weren't on Section 8, but we also weren't middle class. My mother house cleaned for the middle class. So, gotcha. We were kind of, we weren't living without, but we weren't living with a lot. Gotcha. It was growing up, we had what we needed. Correct. Gotcha. Now, as far as everybody's, I don't want to say everybody, but for most people, some, childhoods are better than others. Mine was tumultuous, just like a lot of people. But I've always thought that there was more. I always had this sense that there was more to life, more to my circumstances, more. There were different. Something had to be different. And I did what society back then, many years ago, what wanted women to do was to get married and have kids. So what did I do? I got married and had 3 kids. Unfortunately, that relationship was not a happy one. And I was doing about 4 or 5 jobs at a time just to kind of make ends meet for the family. That relationship dissolved and I divorced. And within that time frame, though, I had become a real estate agent thinking, hey, there's more. I can do more. And I loved it because at the time I was a real estate agent in Conshohocken and Norristown area when it was really bad. When these investors were coming in and I was helping the investors buy these properties for $5,000-$10,000, doing the 203B FHA. Is it 203B? it's an FHA program that they work with the appraiser, and it actually is a rehab program that FHA has or had at that time. And then they were fix and flipping them. And I was like, wow, they're taking these buildings that are 100 and some years old and just totally revitalizing and increasing the neighborhood at the same time and just making everything beautiful. And I was like, this is awesome. This is what I wanted to do. Needless to say, through the divorce, had to give all that up. Fast forward to meeting my current husband, and we moved out to Lancaster, and just a lot of changes. But he finally asked he asked me, what were my dreams? What did I want to do? What did I see my life being? And he kind of introduced goals, and he introduced other people into my life who were very positive, because the whole rest of my life were crabs in a bucket, where if you think there's more to life, well, these crabs say, oh, hell no, and they pull you back down. So, he kind of got me on this, hey, there is an and. It's the power of the and. It's the power of a different, it's not a, it's an abundant mindset. It's not a scarcity mindset. And that was huge. Oh. Like, I totally couldn't understand the concept. $2,000 was huge in my life. I thought that was like, achieving that was like amazing. So when we moved to Lancaster, I had a medical procedure, and I said, you know what? I want to do real estate again. I want to do something where I can do what those investors were doing, where I can make a change. I can make a positive change. And found a course online. Pretty much, I took the course, but the course was designed, and it's through one of our mentors. The course was designed where you have to go through a week, and you have to actually do the work before you can go on to the next week. Well, I was already on to the next week. I'm calling her, I'm texting her. I'm like, just give me all 4 weeks, because I am 6 weeks laid up at home, and I can do all of the stuff that you're asking in a day. Like, let's go. Like, I need more. Found my first property via auction on the same street that a nonprofit for women and children was on. So that's very close to my heart because of what I went through. And started working with them, kind of, networking and getting to know them more and what their needs were. In the meantime, I had bought my first property for $10,000 at auction. And then my husband and I fixed it all up. And then I decided to rent it to this nonprofit. But not to the nonprofit, to the women coming out of their program. So that's kind of how I got started in buy and hold investing. And really then got involved in Lancaster City kind of leaders and different committees and groups, and said, this particular street, we're gonna revitalize the street. We're going to be very targeted on things. And that was 4 years ago. Since then, I have 3 other businesses. And through that same mentor, we learned about private money lending. We learned so much, and I'm still learning.
Yeah, you never really stop. You never stop. So you use a lot of question marks in there that I'm sure our listeners have, and I know I have. And I want to dive in. So let's go back to the beginning. You said it was more. You always felt there was more, but your mother, clean houses for the middle class. You guys didn't go without, but you went with just the bare minimum to get by. Having all that around you, where did this sense of more come from? What was that? Something that was taught? What was the burn?
Okay, well, it's hard to explain because I wasn't taught any of that. I was taught you go to work, You come home, you go to work, you come, like, you stay at a job for 20, 30 years, and that's your life. I never felt that I even belonged to my family. Like I've even joked to my sister and my parents that, are you sure I'm not adopted? Because I've never had the sense that I even belonged to the family.
And that was mainly because of your drive, your passion for the Moor, or was there other factors as well?
It was because of that, and I was so different.
Okay.
I'm the black sheep of the family, and I was so different from my nuclear family that as a child, you look around and you're like, this isn't, I don't belong here.
So how did that make you feel? Like, did you feel like, I mean, and I guess I'm trying to phrase this, and I don't know how to phrase this, but so many people could have gone through that, but done the different direction where I don't belong here. So unfortunately, some commit suicide, some run away from home, some get in with the wrong crowd, but you didn't. Not that your path is perfect, but you found that I don't belong here. I just belong somewhere else. How did that somewhere else take you to this path?
Well, I can say that I don't belong here. I actually was sent up to New York to a boarding school for a home for troubled teenagers. And being away from that nuclear family is actually what saved my life.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
At what point did that click? At what point did you, now let me ask, I'm going to make the assumption here. Were you pissed when you were sent off? Or was it
Oh, yes. My father made the decision. Well, my mother had my father make the decision. It was her or I, and she was staying and I was leaving.
Wait.
Oh, yes. There was.
So your mother, your biological mother, gave an ultimatum to your biological father.
Correct.
Pick between your wife
or your daughter.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not going anywhere.
Correct.
Wow. I had no clue.
There's multiple things. I was involved. My mother actually had tried killing me. I was involved in an accident trying to run away. Social services was involved. There was a lot of abuse. So literally, and I can look about it 45 years old, and I can look back now, going through a lot of therapy and say, as much as I hated at the time, I mean, I had 3 grandparents die within 6 months of each other at the same time. So I can look back at now and say that decision, that ultimatum that my mother gave my father, as much as I hated him at the time, and I hated my mother at the time, that ultimately saved my life.
And when did that click for you? So obviously you're pissed off, you're being shipped off. The person who's supposed to be there to provide you the blanket, the comfort of everything has now said, peace out, see ya. You're pissed off, you go. You're up there in New York. What clicks? What makes you say, at what point in time says, thank you. Thanks for doing that?
That did not click until about 5 years ago.
Wait, 5 years ago?
5 years ago.
Not 5 years after you were sent. 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Wow. When I finally forgave them and myself. And a lot of that had to do with my husband and a lot of counseling.
All right, so that's a good segue. Let's fast forward now. You were married, had 3 kids. Your husband didn't really support you, what you wanted to do. He just wanted you to be home, make babies, and take care of him. And that's the words I'm using. Now you get out of that relationship, you go to this new relationship. How did the man in your life now come to be the man in your life? Like, what circle did you put yourself in? Because you didn't run with that crowd, but now you run with this crowd, right? So what was the circle? And if it's X-rated, we don't want to know about it. Make a PG version of it.
Well, put it this way: getting out of my prior relationship, I was beat down my whole life. You're beat down. You're told you're not loved. You're told your soul literally dies. You're constantly being told nobody will love you. And as a woman, you feel like the whole world is on your shoulders and you have no way out. So, getting out of my previous relationship, I was like, oh, heck no, I'm doing this on my terms. I am independent. Gotcha. No man is telling me what to do. If I'm going to go have booty, I'm going to have booty. If I'm going to make my money, I'm going to make my money. And it is all on me. I am all going to be responsible 100%. And you know what? Everybody else that has said, hey, you can't do this and you can't do that. And, you're a piece of shit. I don't want to hear it. Like, you have nothing on me anymore. This is all going to be me. And I was out of my relationship for 2 years before I met my current husband. And, it also was an awakening on all other levels, not just my soul, but who I am as a person.
So what was it, 2 years away or when you met him?
It was the transformation of the 2 years after my divorce.
Okay. That's
yes, everything. Like, my whole life, I was still struggling. I was putting $5 in my gas tank to get to work, and, I was still sleeping with, at a friend's house, and I was still dealing with child support and all of that. And I was still dealing with real world life issues, but I changed in myself, and I started reading, meditation books, and I started reading about different religions because I have a whole issue with a certain religion, because my parents and my upbringing were very hypocritical. So I have issues with religion. I don't have issues with spirituality. I have issues with religion. So I just started really immersing myself in other ways of thinking, and really opened myself up and transformed myself for me, not for anybody else, for me. And part of that independence was I was going to get booty wherever I wanted to do it. And that's how I met my husband now. So we say it was over a cup of coffee, but it's called OkCupid.
OkCupid?
At the time, that was an online dating service.
Oh, yes. My gosh. Okay.
And we talked a lot. We talked about, everything that I do, I'm very open and honest, and there is no secrets, because my whole life before, there's always been secrets. I've always been the last one to know. Everybody was making decisions for me, and now I'm making my decisions. So we really talked and bonded over these issues. And then, fast forward, I met him in 2013, April 1st, 2013. And by April 1st, 2015, we were married.
Nice.
And he has 3 kids. So together we have 6. And we now have 2 grandbabies. Yes.
So we got the Brady Bunch, real life Brady Bunch going on. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. So I'm learning a lot about you in this phone call. All good stuff. All awesome stuff. I mean, I respected you, but now it's like, woo, even higher.
No.
But this is why we have these conversations. This is why I love to have people like you on the show, because what you went through, yes, was what you went through. But I'm willing to bet there are thousands, if not millions of people out there who have some sort of struggle on the same lines you have, and they feel that they're by themselves. They feel that they can't do it. Why? Because that one person said you can't do it. It's not going to work. And they listen to that voice more than any other voice in the world. And that is a big thing. And this is why so this podcast first started off for real estate, realtors only. But the more I would meet people like you, or the mentors, and other people in our circles, the more I got to realize it was like, this is not just about real estate. This is just a legit mindset. No matter what you want to do, real estate just happens to be is a
Mhm.
product how we make our money. But the mindset, the mind shift, is very important, because that's what I wanted to find out from you. Like, at what point in time did you want more? And yours was from a very, very young age that you said,
Mhm.
I knew there was more out there. Not many people think like that. But that doesn't mean that just because you didn't think of that way when you were like 10, 12, doesn't mean you can't think that way when you're 41 or 42. You know,
Mhm.
the fact that you were able to forgive
Mm.
5 years ago, okay, and I know that forgive is very broad definition
Mhm.
there. We forgive and don't forget kind of ordeal there. Um, that to me speaks volumes that of your previous statement. I'm always learning, right? Like, you're still learning. You're not just learning about private money or about flips or about BRRs or any real estate. You're just learning about yourself and how strong you really are to able to do that, whether it be on a low percentage level. The fact that you said, you know what? Yes, I'm this age. My life is far from over, but I know for me to get to this next level, I have to do this,
Mhm.
right? So that again just speaks volumes, and that's why I like talking to people like you, because your story needs to be heard, and I think it gives
Well, thank you.
confidence. No, seriously, it's. I think it helps give confidence to people, especially females. I mean, we've had the discussions about how, unfortunately, females to this day in 2021 still get treated like second class citizens, especially when it comes to renovations. You know,
Mhm.
contractors don't want to talk to females. Contractors want to give a different price to females. Contractors want to push off appointments on females.
Mhm.
Hell, matter of fact, can you please tell this story? Because it's funny. It's a funny story, but it's a good story about the network meeting that we were at, and the contractor was on stage and didn't realize you were there. The look on everyone's face when you said that was me was priceless. So I'm going to shut up and I want you to tell that story. Please tell that story.
Okay, so so Thomas, my husband and I were renovating our first property together, and I was looking, and it's hard. It was so hard doing nights and weekends. We both had full-time jobs. And so we were at one point where I was like, okay, I know we can't do this. We can, but I just don't have the time. So let me have a contractor come in and give me a quote for the rest of this project. So I had went through a couple ones, because you don't want to go with your first contractor's quote. You want to kind of have two or three to
Yeah, naturally.
you have a scope of work, and you've got two or three because they're going to give you all kinds of different prices. So we had done one of our mentors had done an on-site rehab meetup, and I met this contractor there. And I said to him, hey, can you come and look at the rest of this scope of work? I had a couple of contractors come through. They really came in high, but I just kind of want to get an idea. He said, fine. He comes through. He gives a quote, which is astronomically high. And my husband went through and kind of was like, hey, you need to sharpen your pencil a little bit on these items, because I know how much they cost at Lowe's, and even at $100 an hour, it shouldn't cost, whatever this was. So him and I had gone back and forth quite a few times, and he had sent one of the items was an HVAC system, and I didn't even have the gas on from the gas company yet. It was still tentative, but he had sent his HVAC guys to look at my furnace, and I was like, and they show up, and I was like, no. Like, I haven't even signed the contract with him, and you're showing up, and I don't have the gas on. So how are you going to repair something that doesn't have any gas to it? So we kind of got into a little bit of a tiff there. I go to these meetup groups, and this particular contractor was speaking. And right off the bat, he was trying to tell investors and homeowners that, hey, you've got a scope of work and it's just it costs me time, it costs you time, it's going to cost more money if you make changes. You should know what you want before you even start things. And I believe, if I remember correctly, he said, oh, and I even charge people more if I think they're going to be difficult. So, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And I knew he was talking about me because of the circumstances that he was describing. So I was like, I'm not going to let you get away with this. Oh, no, you're not going to put me in a bad light because of your issues. And I just went, excuse me, that's me you're talking about. And he tried to flip the script of, well, we didn't have a signed contract. No, we didn't. You're correct. We did not. And then he also tried, well, my electrician, I was like, again, didn't have a signed contract. Like, so you shouldn't be bringing people to my job, to my stuff, thinking that they're going to do work and they're going to get paid. We don't have a signed contract. So yeah, he kind of made himself look like an ass, although I felt at the time he was making me look like an ass. And then,
I mean, he tried, I was there. So he did try initially. And I think you're actually being pretty nice to him, to be honest, the way you're describing it, because he did come out and he flat out said, I have an investor I'm dealing with, and she's like he just started, and you put your hand up because he didn't say your name. No one knew it was you. But he was basically making you sound like you were incompetent, inadequate, just had no clue, flailing all over the place. Your scope was changing and this wasn't in place, all the kind of stuff. And when you raised your hand, I would never look, me and the other investors that we all know we mess around with, the look, we all like, holy shit, it's about to go down right now. Because when you put your hand up, I don't think anybody, including myself, was expecting that, right? Because a lot of times when someone is saying something, we think a very timid and big situation, we're like, we'll just keep our hands like, no, I'll deal with it in private, I won't cause a scene or something like that. But you said, hell no. Like you stood up for yourself and said, well, hell no, you are not going to make it seem like I'm the problem when it's really you or something like that, which is what myself and Paul and John, we were just laughing and said, that is awesome. That was extremely awesome and stuff like that. And it was funny because we were all new, so to speak, and learn everybody in the areas and stuff. And so it was kind of like this big bad contractor who had all this experience and was using all this work, and we're all newbies in the game. And so when you did that, whether you realize or not, it's like you spoke for a lot of us. Like you kind of spoke for a lot of us who kind of like, oh, you know what? I'm going to talk to this person. No, what you did personally, I can speak for myself. It gave me courage that going forward, if someone was using me or my situation as an example, to say, hey, listen, that's not right. And it's not to pick a fight in public, but it's just to legit almost educate that people that, hey, listen, just because a person has the mic or has the podium doesn't mean that 100% they know what they're talking about. I have a podcast. It doesn't mean everything I'm spitting out is going to be 100% truth for that situation, but it's my truth of what I've experienced. That's really about it. And it's not to say every contractor is a bad contractor or every newbie investor is going to be a pain in the ass. It's just that what he did was wrong. You corrected it, and that was it. Like you both were professional about it in a sense of how it was handled after the fact. I just thought it was hilarious how he thought he was going to be getting away with talking shit about somebody when he really wasn't going to get away with it.
Well, and that's also part of, now, if you knew me 5-10 years ago, well, not 5, but maybe 10 years ago, I would be that person in the room being like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Again, that whole 2 years was a transformation of my own independence, and I'm sticking up for myself. And placing those boundaries. Like there's been other people in my life, like my ex and other friends where, they're narcissistic and they have those I call them flying monkeys. They're the people around them that just parrot what they say.
Okay.
And they're friends with them so instead of sticking up for the person that's kind of in that, and I said, I will never be one of those people, and I will be independent. And unfortunately, I typically now say what other people are thinking.
Yeah.
which then gets me in trouble because then I'm aggressive or I'm the, I'm the bitch or whatever, but I'm actually saying what you're all thinking.
I was just gonna say that's a bunch of bullshit because you are saying what everyone else is thinking. You got the confidence to do it, and I think a lot of times with regards to the industry, anytime you're new, quote unquote, new to the industry, it doesn't mean you're new to the industry. It just means you're new to the people now you've exposed
Right.
yourself to, right? So I think a lot of the times, myself included, is that we have to remember. We go into industry because we are familiar with it or we have a passion for it or we enjoy it, and that we just because we don't have 500 flips underneath our belt and $10 million in loans and private money other guy doesn't mean we know less. It just means that we have experience in the field. We've been keeping it to ourselves. We now want to share it with everybody else. And look, we know what they say about opinions, right? So everyone's always going to have that opinion about you. We just can't care about that. So to your point, had 10 years ago, if that would have happened, you would have just crouched down and like, nope, I'm just gonna, that's it. But you grew from your situation personally, from marriages and parents and just dealing with people to now. And I think those who are listening to this cast or any podcast that talks about moving forward or moving ahead, I think we forget about that growth because we don't look at it as a growth moment. We look at it as a, oh crap, what am I going to do moment, right? Something I tell I tell my family, or I started asking myself that I told my family what I started to do was I no longer ask God why. I now ask what's the lesson, right? So if something happens, I'm like, oh God, why? I used to do that, not anymore. I'm like, all right, what's the lesson here? And once you get that flipped in your head, it's just you're like, okay, what's the lesson? Because if you say, oh God, why? You start pitting yourself and yourself wallowing, like, the word is over. But if you say, okay, God, what's the lesson? Now you're thinking, you're not living in the moment. You're living, okay, how can I fix it? Right? Just those small shifts there. So yeah, I just think that's, I think people need to hear the stories. I think people need to understand that although if they talk to you now, you have X amount of rentals and you're now a private money lender and you still have your W-2 job and you take care and you hold it down. It wasn't all roses. It was no. It wasn't roses, it wasn't unicorns and rainbows and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, it still isn't.
It's not can you please tell people it's not sexy? It just isn't sexy.
I'm sexy and I know it. No, it's not. Like for example, guys, okay, today first of all, I don't have 500 doors. My goal is not to have 500 doors. I don't want to have 500 doors. If I have 500 doors, shoot me. Because right now, like, it's been pouring for the past couple of days, right? I have roof issues. I have ceilings that have just fallen down. This is not sexy. And I just had the roof fixed 2 years ago. So, and because of all the storms and everything else, the slate has started to come off. So now I've got to get the entire top slate redone, and which is expensive. Slate is expensive. But I'm keeping the character of the house, so I'm going to stick with the slate. But it's not sexy. Yes. Are there days that, like today, I slept in till 7:30? Oh, yes. Are there days that I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning or I don't go to bed till 2 o'clock at night? Yes.
And it's more those days probably than the sleeping in days.
Right. I mean, I'm going on vacation in October and I literally am not taking my phone. I'm not taking my computer because for those 4 days, I'm totally unplugging. I think I actually saw on Facebook, you were unplugging for like 2 weeks.
I'm unplugging for 14 days straight. And we're going on vacation for 14 days. And I'm like, you know what? I'm off. That's it. I am off.
And we have to do that. We have to do that because, like you said in the beginning, it is balls to the wall, sometimes. And then you literally have to be like, okay, I need to break. Because if you don't refill you and you don't take time for you, you cannot, be good for everything else that's going to come up.
Yeah, there's a big difference between being selfish and then self-care. right? And that's you're 4 days away, my 2 weeks away, someone else is 2 months away. You need the time just to decompress and get away. It doesn't mean that social media stresses me out or stresses you out or anything on the phone stresses out. It just means that, hey, you know what? I know I can be a better version. So let me just stop some of these venues here that I'm doing, these avenues of communication, and let me just focus on this and stuff like that. Because we do get overwhelmed. It happens to all of us. It's easy to get overwhelmed. Like you said, when I see 4 days of rain, I'm like, crap. Okay, how many phone calls am I going to get of roof issue, flooding, basement, this, that, whatever? It doesn't mean our properties are crap. No. Does it mean we're slumlords? No. It just means that Mother Nature is a son of a bitch at times. So
Yeah.
it happens. But and in previous podcasts, I talk about, budgeting for stuff. You never cut your insurance. And I'll stick to that to day one. I make sure my insurance as best as possible. I'll pay the premium any day of the week to make sure that, because it's going to happen, right, Michelle? It's going to happen. We get the phone calls. Hey, I'm sorry to bug you, but here's what's going on. And it's always on a Friday. It's always on a Sunday. Never happens like on 9 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock.
Tuesday.
Exactly. It happens on a Monday or Friday or weekend. It is what it is. We signed up for it, whether we know it or not. But it's again, it's just not sexy to do stuff. But having said that, we are able to go on vacation. We're able to go ahead and enjoy. We're able to take a time out to have discussions like this. We're able to do a lot of the things I don't want to take away from that to say woe is us by any stretch of the imagination. It's just there's a lot. What I don't want people to take away from this or anything is, don't take away that you feel sorry for us, but also take away for the fact that it's work. At the end of the day, it's work. It just doesn't always feel like it because you're doing it for yourself. And putting in 10 hours for yourself and putting in 10 hours for somebody else feels totally different. You don't feel, when you put 10 hours for yourself, it doesn't feel like 10 hours. It's like, holy shit, where'd the time go? Where if you're working for somebody else, you're like, it's only 3 o'clock. Oh my gosh, I still got more time to go, right?
And I totally attest to that, because Monday and Tuesdays I work a W-2 job and I work 10, 12, sometimes 14 hours. And, by, 3, 4 o'clock, I'm like, okay, how many more hours do I need to do? Like, what else? By, 2, 3, 4 o'clock, like after our podcast today, I have a full day and I know I'm not going to get home till 6, 7 o'clock, but I'm good with that because I know I'm actually doing things that is propelling the business, that is helping other people. I feel doing this, I have a purpose. Where doing my W-2 job, yes, they can say all they want, and it is true that I am, helping people live. But at the same time, you don't get the satisfaction of seeing that person ever again. And that person literally is on my OR table and we're fixing them. But then by the time they wheeled out of my OR, I never see them again. So I don't see the results. I don't get that satisfaction where doing what I'm doing, I actually get to see it.
So can you kind of take us on an average day of brick and mortar investments?
So on an average day of brick and mortar investments, there is no average, but I will try. Brick and mortar also has two sister companies, Tranquility Homes and Timber and Time, and a lending business. So on any given day, I am flipping and flopping between all four of them, depending on what's going on that day. So for example, today between 11 and 12, you and I are talking about brick and mortar and we're doing a podcast. But at 1 o'clock, I am going to see a property, but that's for Tranquility Homes. I then will come back and do bookkeeping since it was the 10th for all three of the businesses. About, I think 5 o'clock is when then I'll start doing the due diligence for one of our lending companies. So it kind of just depends on what's going on that day and what company needs which attention.
Gotcha. Now, how involved is your husband in any of the businesses at all, or is it just some or all or none? Or
So he is supportive in spirit.
okay,
We've gotten to the point, he was very involved in our first couple of rehabs. He actually did the renovations. We did them together. And when we do the refinances, he is involved with like signing on the dotted line, which is one of the things that I'm glad that we have W-2 jobs for,
yeah,
because that actually has opens up a lot of better rates, better terms. The banks look at us much differently than if we were self-employed.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
And so he's very supportive that way. As far as we probably, Michelle and Thomas to collectively probably put, I think 60,000 into brick and mortar, which then has rolled into all of the other businesses. So that's pretty much how supportive he is. I mean, the
That's
lending
huge,
business,
though. That's
yeah,
huge.
I mean,
Yeah.
the lending business, like I'll tell him, I'll do due diligence and I'll say, I'll say to him, hey, so and so wants this much. These are the terms. And I give him, he gets the last, ultimately the last say, because we are doing it out of his retirement accounts.
Gotcha.
But I kind of do all of the paperwork, and I handle, all of the accounts.
Okay. No, that's good. That spiritual support, I don't think gets enough credit. And I say that only because my wife is the same way. My wife has nothing to do with the business. She likes her what I call cubicle life. Like that's what she loves. That's what she thrives in, and that's fine. We used to butt heads in the beginning because I'm like, how dare you not want to do this kind of stuff, whatever. But um, the fact that she lets me be me, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
it's big, right? And so that's what it sounds like, very similar to what you guys have a little bit more. But no, that's good. I think I guess we're going to wrap up here, but this was fun. I hope you had fun.
I
I got
did.
to learn a
Thank
lot
you.
about you and stuff like that, more than I already didn't know. Um, I tell you what, normally every guest at this point in time, if you want to give your website out or anything you want to talk about your business, feel free to close out.
Um, I think my biggest takeaway that I want people to understand is just be the millionaire next door. You know, I this is flashy for me being on the podcast. um, and there's a lot of people out, and don't compare yourself to others. There's so many people out there that, oh, I'm doing this, or oh, I'm doing that, or oh, this is how I'm doing it, and they're very flashy about things. Just be real with yourself and don't compare yourself to others, and you'll get much farther doing that than you will saying I don't have 500 doors, or I don't have this syndication, or I don't have that. Just keep plugging along and stay true to your why. And when I say why, because your why changes, but the why that you have right now, stay true to that and you will get there. And fail often and fail fast.
So for those who have um, not heard other podcasts, please listen to them. If this is the first you listen to those, because almost everybody gives the almost close same advice, and which solidifies it. It does is that you have to fail. You have to
Mm-hmm.
almost fail to learn, and that why is just such a strong driving point. It's there. It's just what I love to see, how everybody has the same why or very similar why, but the path of how they get there is so different.
Mm-hmm.
And so those stories is what I kind of keep on revealing. So that's it for this week, folks. We're going to wrap it up. We try to keep it short, for the most part. The interview guests last about an hour, give or take. Um, Again, thank you, Michelle, for taking the time out. I know you're busy. Thanks for doing this for our listeners and stuff like that. Please give a shout out to Michelle Rogers of Brick and Mortar Investments. She's on social media. I'm not saying she's going to accept you as a friend, but feel free to reach out to her if you want and go from there. But she's direct. She'll tell you how it is. And that's what I love about her.
That's true.
Again, each and every week, be good to yourself, be good to everybody else. Just be respectful, be kind, and pay it forward. And last but not least, just do right by the client. If you do right by the client, everything else will fall into place. I can almost guarantee that every single time. Take care of the client and everything else pops into place for you. Take care. Have a great week. We'll see you guys next week. Michelle, thanks again. And I'm sure I'll be talking to you soon. I think I need to borrow some money. Another project I have to go look at. So I'll probably be calling you for that there. So, all right. Take care, everyone. I'll talk to y'all next week. See ya.
Thank you. Thank you very much.